What's up, guys? Welcome back. Got the shop kind of cleaned out at the moment, but it's nice out, so we've got some cars just chilling outside. Well, in this episode, we're back on the chop top Corvair, which is currently outside, aired up on stilts. I've been wanting to redo the exhaust on this. It's a dual exhaust setup that my father and I built for it back when we first put it back on the road, when we built the suspension to bag it, when we chopped the roof, when we basically put it back on the road for the first time in 41 years. Most of you may know, but those of you who don't, the Chevy Corvair is a rear-engined, air-cooled flat six car. And 3 cylinders go one way, 3 cylinders go the other as a flat motor. And normally, one side accumulates to the other for the exhaust and comes out one side. So essentially, we have 2 mufflers, glass packs technically, in this car right now. We've got a 180-degree bend to one and 180-degree bend to another. Well, those mufflers have been in the car since we finished it in early 2014, so it's been over 10 years that those mufflers have been in there, and the baffles are all worn out, and it just doesn't sound as good as it did when we first built it. So back a while ago, I ordered the same mufflers that are in it with the intention of replacing them, and that time is now. Bought a bunch of stuff from Clark's Corvair up in Massachusetts. They have basically everything you need for your Corvair, essentially, right down to seals. So in these 2 bags are a pair of oil cooler seals. There's only 2 to a car. I did buy duplicates of a lot of these parts, as I mentioned in a previous episode, because I was hoping we'd be driving the white Corvair and be doing some routine maintenance to it and not be dealing with a seized motor. So I've got duplicates of a lot of these parts. This here is a pushrod tube seal kit. But if you know Corvairs, you know that if they have oil in them, they are leaking it from somewhere. And that's no exception for what's going on right now. I really need to tighten up some of the oil leaks. Let's get this thing pressure washed. We'll get it drip dried. We'll get it in the shop. We'll get it up on the lift. So now, I think what I'll start with is we will try to gain access to the oil cooler, which is down here. So you can see some of the fins of it right there underneath the engine shroud. I'm pretty sure that that's where most of my oil leaks are coming from. Got a chance to clean up the oil cooler itself a little bit last night. Went over to the parts washer and just scrubbed a lot of the grime off of it. Now these seals, although still rubbery, are definitely crunched up pretty good. The ones that took out originally weren't even rubber anymore, or Delrin composite, whatever their composition is. These here have been in the car for 10 years now, and I don't know what the shelf life of these things would normally be, but 10 years sounds like a good run. Okay, so oil cooler is back in. Everything's put back together except for some of the tin work underneath. Wanted to keep the tin covers underneath off so I could see if anything was leaking. But what I want to do before we do the oil change, get it up in the air and pull the exhaust off, is I want to do a sound comparison. So we'll get the thing started and we'll hear it with the mufflers that are pretty much blown out, the glass packs that have been in there for over 10 years now. I'd rather not have an obnoxiously loud car. I don't mind a nice throaty tone, you know, something that you know it's there when you're on the throttle, but I really don't want it to be obnoxious either. And this is getting to that point. Hopefully the combination of new gaskets and the new mufflers will make a big change. All right, well, it's been sitting for a little bit, had an afternoon coffee, and I think that exhaust system is cooled down enough to where we can start handling it. What we have here are some of the replacement parts. First and foremost, we've got the little donut gaskets. Essentially, underneath the motor here, we have 3 cylinders, 3 cylinders, as an opposed motor, right? You can see the cylinder head jugs right there. Corvairs, it's an actual cylinder head. We have our exhaust tubes that come down to an exhaust wog that they call it, and goes all the way to the back of the motor to another flange and then to our exhaust system here, right? Now this is the dual setup I was telling you guys about. We've got one that comes out of this exhaust wog on this bank of cylinders, makes a 180-degree bend to an 18-inch glass pack to a turn down. And then we did the same on this side. Came out of this flange, out of this 3-cylinder bank, 180-degree turn, 18-inch glass pack, turn down. And these right here are the exhaust gaskets right in between these two flanges that I'll replace when I take the exhaust systems off. But essentially we have to reuse everything except the mufflers because I can't replicate those here in the shop at this minute. All right, so back to the parts. We've got our new gaskets and our brand new 18-inch glass packs. So these are the same that's in the car. We've got some baffles down in there. So we basically have to accurately cut off our old components off the old mufflers and leave enough material to weld them onto this well enough to where it doesn't leak. These are from Summit Racing, and I got the exhaust gaskets from O'Reilly, believe it or not. I was able to find these exhaust gaskets right from my local parts store. All right, exhausts are out, and this is what they look like outside of the car. Pretty simple. I mean, really simple if you consider the fact that the motor's in the back and the exhaust exits the back. You know, it's not like we had to build a full system from the front of the car all the way out. So the trick here is going to be cutting these welds and getting both the tips and our main pieces off calculated enough to where I can reuse them and re-weld them. All right, well, we got one side good enough to fit into the muffler. We've got the flange 180-degree section fit in there nice. Nice enough to weld up at least. And we've got the tailpipe in here too. It's loose, but good enough to weld around. All right, well, we got the last one done. This end's a little looser than I'd like it to be, but weldable still. That was the only thing I was kind of concerned about, was making sure I could save these pieces. This one, not so much. I probably could do that, but even with the right size dies in my manual tubing bender, I don't have an expander, so it would have been tough to expand up into these inlets and outlets. All right, next morning. Good morning. Just ran to the parts store and got some new exhaust clamps. It's so funny with the move to V-bands and all the new technology with exhaust. These guys, these old school exhaust clamps, were $2 a piece at O'Reilly with a commercial account. And they are going to replace these old ones that, as you guys already saw, I had to torch one off. Oddly enough, it was the one that looked like it was going to come off nice and easy. We're about to start fitting it in the car. I'm going to get the tip welded in first. We'll weld the tip in, and then that'll allow me to put my clamp on and get my hanger out to it, right? We'll get the hoist over and we'll get it set up into place. Then I'll run the main part of the exhaust to it. And when I tack weld it, if it moves, at least we've got this hanger holding it indexed in the right location. So I think that's the way I'll do it, just in case we get a lot of movement when we weld it. Now, if you guys have ever messed with a glass pack before, they have baffles in them. You can kind of see them right there, right? And those baffles are directional. Now, if we were to send the exhaust flow this way, so the baffles aren't scooping the exhaust is rolling over the back of the baffle, we're going to get a louder tone. We're going to get a louder sound, I should say. But if we send it this way, like facing forward, so the exhaust actually gets captured in those baffles, we're going to have a quieter sound. And actually possibly a different tone as well, since those sound waves are going to get disrupted by getting caught in those baffles. Now, my father owned a custom exhaust business and did custom exhaust work since before I was born. This was like early 80s he started doing custom exhaust work. And he's worked with this exact glass pack, these blanks, a ton. So he's run them both ways, you know, depending on if it was his car, if it was a customer's car, what they wanted for a sound. Was it a Chevy? Was it a Ford or Dodge? All those motors had different exhaust tones. And over the years, he knew what would sound like what. I mean, how many of us know what a 5.0 Fox body Mustang with Flowmasters sounds like, right? I mean, I can hear that right now. When we built this exhaust system, we ran it so the baffles were facing back. So the exhaust flow went over the back of the louver and didn't get caught inside them. Loved the tone, loved the sound. Now, over the last 10 years, it's gotten louder and a little bit more like disrupted. It's just like a looser sounding loudness. You know, I don't really know how to describe it. So after 10 years, it's time for these mufflers to be replaced. So this time around, I'm going to face the baffles towards the front of the car so the exhaust gets trapped into them. The car is not going to be quiet, right? It's a straight through. It's exhaust manifold to an 18-inch bend into this muffler right out the back of the car. So as I'm getting this one set up to weld, that's my thought process. I want to make sure that this is facing the right way. We're going to face it so the baffles are facing forward. So the exhaust will come in this way, get trapped in the baffles, and then come out the tailpipe. And also the fact that this is a turn down tip and faces the ground on a car that's lowered also affects the sound. You know, that sound is coming out of the tailpipe and bouncing off of the ground immediately, which is why trucks with stacks sound totally different as well, since that sound wave is just going up into the air. All right, so I got the tip welded in. Went all the way around with it. Made sure it wasn't going to leak. All right, so we're going to put the new gasket in as well so we get our spacing right. All right, so we got our first couple of tacks done. We got the flange bolts tight as well, so we've got our gasket in there, everything's tight, and got everything twisted and indexed to where it seemed like it wanted to sit level. I'll cut these studs just so they don't hang down too far, but you won't be able to see it. Once the car is down on the ground, you'll never see that. All right, well, we got one side all welded up. I really hope I don't have to cut this apart. Everything seemed to fit in the car okay when we tack welded everything up. That's the passenger side done. We'll get it in the car, make sure everything looks good, and we'll move right on to the driver's side. Okay guys, we have the last system welded together. Let's get this last system in and installed. I am chomping at the bit to hear this thing. I can't wait to hear how it sounds. All right guys, both exhaust systems are in. Haven't painted the welds yet, but I just want to hear this thing run. Super excited. So I'm gonna put the wheels back on, get it down, everything's tight. I forgot we're gonna do an oil change on this thing while it's on the lift. So we're gonna do that real quick. And we're gonna do that real quick because it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside right now, mid-afternoon. All right, while that drains, we'll head over here to the oil rack. And I cannot overstate my thanks to everyone at ROWE Oil for coming on board and helping out here at the shop. This has just been unbelievable to work with these guys. I was running the 2050 ROWE in the air-cooled cars before I ever had a relationship with ROWE. They make this 2050 for Porsche. So the Porsche 2050 you get in the metal tins is actually ROWE 2050. So ROWE makes it for Porsche, which is so cool. But I have a lot of friends who've hit me up asking about where they can get ROWE oil, especially the vintage 2050. USP Motorsport is where you can go for the 2050 or the 540 or any other ROWE oil that you can get here. So I'll put a link to their website in the video's description below so you can head there and get some ROWE for yourself. All right, so to basically fill the oil filter and finish the oil change, we got to start it. So we're ultimately going to hear this thing run with the new mufflers for the first time while doing the oil change, essentially. Okay, so it's honestly a little bit louder than I expected, especially by flipping those baffles around. Really expected it to be just a smidgen, like softer, maybe. All right, next morning, could not drive it yesterday afternoon. It was just too hot. It was like 107 degrees out, and you will straight up die in this thing. It is a tin can, and you would get fried to death. It's a little loud. All right, first drive on the new glass packs. Oh man, guys, I don't know if I like this. I think this is worse than it was before. Oh man, it's pretty loud. Oh no. Oh no. I don't know if the microphone's picking up how not good this sounds. But it sounds very not good in person. Driveway. Sorry everyone. Sorry. Wow. That's enough of that. Oh man. Well, I was trying to think of how I could make it seem like I liked the way it sounded to make this episode a win for the shop and for my soul. but I don't think it is. I really hate the way it sounds. And I hate to say that, I really do, because I just put a bunch of work into welding those new mufflers in. I really thought that turning those mufflers around so the baffles faced forward so the exhaust could get trapped into the baffles would really deaden the sound and quiet it down a little bit. And it did the polar opposite. I have another Corvair with a stock motor that is not on the road and not running. And this Corvair has the factory exhaust system in it. Now, I don't want to get too ahead of myself yet. I've already crawled underneath there and soaked everything in PB Blast because Lord knows we're gonna need it. I think we might take the stock exhaust system off this Corvair and see if we can get it on the Monza. But since this thing's not going anywhere anytime soon, especially with that exhaust system, we might as well put it on this. Okay guys, this is what the factory late model Corvair exhaust system looks like. And on this side in the stock car, we have nothing. Nothing's here. But in the stock late model Corvair, in the 95 and 110 horse 500s and Monzas, this exhaust manifold on the driver's side comes out to an itsy bitsy little exhaust pipe that crosses over under the transaxle and motor in this tiny little valley here, this upside down valley. Crosses over, accumulates with the passenger side exhaust manifold, and accumulates to a normal sized muffler. And then this one has a side exit on it here. All right, well, she didn't come willingly, but got the stock exhaust system off. Man, I had to torch every single nut. Nope. All right, the dual exhaust is out of the chop top Monza and the factory system is in. The beauty of the cars being the same, the OEM system bolts right up. A lot of debris came out of this. I'm sure it's gonna blow a lot out. I don't know what's in that muffler. So, as you guys heard, it is incredibly quiet. But I'll be much happier with this for now until I can build a new system. And that'll be just on the checklist of things to do with this car, is to just find some turbo mufflers or a different muffler that I can utilize this dual exhaust system on. Keep it sounding unique and cool, but also not super loud, obnoxious. All right, guys, well, that is the Corvair done for now. Stock exhaust. I've literally never heard this thing this quiet before, ever. It's quite freaky to drive this thing, even just here in the yard with it this quiet. But for now, we're ready for caffeine and octane. If you're seeing this at 8 a.m. Sunday morning, hope to see you guys down there. And if you're seeing it later in the day, I hope we made it. And maybe we got a chance to see you and hang out for the morning. This took a long time to edit, took a long time to do, because it's just been over the course of most of this week trying to just get other work done and also figure out what I was gonna do with this car. So that's gonna do it for this episode. Kind of a fail on the dual exhaust system, but like I said, you just never know with exhaust systems. So going to reevaluate the dual exhaust at some point with different mufflers. Hopefully we get a different tone out of it, a tone that I really like. But for now, at least it's not obnoxious. I can go drive it, which I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take it for a drive and blow the rest of that just crud and vegetation out of that thing. But thank you guys so much for watching and for all of your support. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. Been trying to stay on the 2 uploads a week thing. It's a ton of work. I really appreciate you guys coming over and watching. We'll see you in the next episode.